Dr. Pawan Goenka joins us right now, and we're going to speak about the current environment, also what's happening at Mahindra and Mahindra's automotive division. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And this is twice in a row that I'm now doing an interview with you in Delhi, so this is going to be some kind of a new first for us. But thank you for speaking to us, Pawan. Appreciate it. The environment, let's start with that. There is so much uncertainty. We've come on the back of so much uncertainty. There seems to be like this almost a euphoric feeling of letting go of some of that baggage. Is that just based on sentiment, or do you see more to it than that?
I think there is more to it. From the last time that we had a long chat when everything was uncertain, the elections have happened, the results have been a clear mandate, and the government that has come in is clearly talking about growth and turning around things that were slowing down or had slowed down. And everything that has happened so far, though it's still talk, but everything that has happened so far points to a direction that our optimism that we have in future is justified, and it's not just sort of sentiment. Of course, the proof will happen in some actions that will emerge over the next 30-40 days. But right now, I think we have more than just sentiment.
But what part of that message is encouraging for you? Because as you mentioned, we of course still don't have a clear policy direction, but you know, there seems to be a certain impetus. There seems to be a certain sort of let's get on with things kind of a feeling coming from government. Is that it?
I think the most important thing is that there was some level of losing faith with the governance that was happening in the country. And the first job for the new government is to bring that trust back into the government. Trust not in terms of scams and all, just in terms of saying, yes, this government means business. And that is happening, certainly happening by the way Mr. Modi has taken charge, by the way he has set up his ministries, by the way he is encouraging the bureaucracy to say, look, don't worry, I'm going to protect you. These things are in some sense just visual, but at the same time they have a very big impact in how people suddenly start saying, okay, now things are different. And I've been meeting several bureaucrats over the last couple of weeks who were very down, who now tend to say, yes, and now I'm willing to go out and do things, put my neck out and do what is right. And that's what gives me confidence that it's not just talk, it's going to start turning into action soon.
That's got to be reassuring for industry. I think we've almost been in a phase of wanting and waiting, you know, for just this to happen. With the budget around the corner, again, there's lots being said about, you know, finally we'll get a sense of what they really mean when they talk about the future of where they want to take the economy, the country. Do you believe that this budget will be that kind of a policy document?
I think it's going to be a policy document and not necessarily a 10-point that will happen. So don't expect that suddenly government will come up with a solution that will be implementable from 16th of July, depending on when the budget happens. But it certainly will be a policy document which will tell us which way the direction government is headed. Mr. Modi has already made it very clear that the next couple of years are going to be very difficult, and economic revival will not just happen by wishing it. We will have to make some sacrifices, take some hard decisions, which may not be popular decisions. And that's the important thing. If the new government is able to take hard decisions, which are not popular decisions, then I think we will be on our way, because that's what we need right now. It's not that we have an impossible situation to correct, but a situation that will require a strong will by everyone concerned, not just the government, but also the industry, also the consumers, and also the people who have been benefiting to some extent by the economic policies. So everybody has to look at this in a holistic manner and say, I may need to do a short-term sacrifice, short-term compromise for a long-term turnaround.
So we can't really expect a SOP-filled bonanza then. I mean, I think that will be a very short-sighted view.
We cannot expect a SOP bonanza, no.
In line with that, though, from the industries, the auto industry's perspective, there is some concern about you know, the excise reduction or the concession that was offered by the last government. That's set to expire at the end of this month. Do you believe that the government will sort of, the new government will carry forward that? Because, you know, taking it away at this stage would be detrimental.
I would want to think so, and the reason is not a sort of mercy on the industry. And the reason is, or the argument has to be economic argument, that if you want to bring back growth from sub 5% to 6, 7, 8% in the next 2 to 3 years, what are the wheels that we need to turn in a manner of speaking? And certainly automobile wheel is one of those yeah. one of those wheels that has to turn for the economy to turn around. And therefore, the government will certainly know that if right now, when the industry is just about beginning to take the turn for the better, right now, if we had that blow of excise duty come back, it's going to slow down the industry terribly.
But the worry is that, this may not be a priority. They may not be looking at this because there are other things to worry about. Do you think that's a valid worry?
I don't think so. I think it will have to be a priority because, again, the data is in front of you. The excise collection that happens from auto industry is 13% of the total excise collection. You cannot ignore it. The employment is 29 million people. In the last 2 years, we think that 2 million people have lost their jobs because of automobiles not growing, right? The local economic activity that happens, the indirect tax, the direct tax collection that happens. So it's not just about automobile industry. It's about economy, and selling more cars, more trucks, more two-wheelers, more tractors will bring a cascading effect in everything. And what we need to do right now is get out of this vicious cycle that we are into, a virtuous cycle. And there are very few things that will quickly create a virtuous cycle, one of which I believe is auto industry. If we turn around and get to 8 to 10% growth, we get into a virtuous cycle. Because once you have automotive growth, you have service stations, you have the showrooms, you have suppliers, you have all kinds of things start happening, and you get into a virtuous cycle.
The timing of all of this is also maybe just sort of coincidental on one level, but it does become crucial because we're sitting at a point where there's two things, in fact, that I'd like you to sort of react to. One is the fact that for several months now, we've had this wait and watch approach from the consumer as well. So yes, we know there's a pent up demand and, we're all waiting for those floodgates to open. The current euphoria and confidence indicate that those floodgates should open. But on the other hand, you also have inflation which refuses to die down, and now talk about a weak monsoon. So
absolutely.
How does that how do the two juxtapose each other?
Yeah, so it's a bit unfortunate that there are two sort of negatives that are coming, which obviously nobody can do anything about. One is
and which directly affect your sector.
Yeah, one is the monsoon, and second is the oil prices that are beginning to go up.
Well.
So these two things will make the job that much tougher. And you are right that the inflation just is very adamant, refuses to come down in spite of everything being tried. So that makes the job that much tougher. If we were in a situation right now where we had to ask for excise reduction, that will be impossible.
Further
what we're
reduction.
asking for is continuation of what was given on 17th February. That perhaps is doable because that's in a way built into the calculations. And we know very well that if that was not to happen, then auto industry will really be in trouble. I mean, there's no doubt about it in my mind that in spite of the 4% excise reduction, the traffic is not suddenly like a traffic jam. It's just a little bit of more happening. It's not a traffic jam. Fortunately for us, the commodity price inflation has been constrained, and therefore not too much pressure on increasing prices. And if we continue the excise, if I'm hoping the second half of the year, if we get into a situation where interest rates can be dropped a little bit, 50 basis point, 100 basis point, cannot happen right now, but hopefully in second half. If you combine the two, and with no commodity price increases happening, and therefore very, very marginal, if any, sales price increase happening, combined effect will be that you will start seeing increases. And I would think that festive season is what one has to look at. So the effect slowly
should build up,
building up to the festive season. And if you have bumper festive season, then you're back in business.
Then you're back, yeah. But if that excise cut is not maintained, do you think it will instantly mean price hikes?
Has to be.
Nobody
just like when we instantly reduced prices, instantly the prices will go up also. There's no question of it being absorbed.
But is the industry looking to actively sort of engage with the new finance minister? Has there been already a meeting? Are you looking to meet with him?
Well, we always do. We had a meeting with as SIAM. We had a meeting with the finance revenue secretary.
Yeah.
Of course, revenue secretary has changed now. We will try and meet the new revenue secretary as SIAM. We will try and meet the finance minister also. But I think while we will meet, but it's well understood and well known. So we don't have to go and talk about it. It's well.
It doesn't need lobbying, as it were.
Yeah. So we will certainly put our views on the paper and in person if we can. But I think the government will do their calculations not based on what we say, but based on what they think are the ground reality.
Outside of this, I mean, what is the larger picture that you would like to see emerge? Because like you mentioned, I mean, a lot of other things need to kickstart as well, especially, let's say, for the truck business, you do need some amount of infrastructure projects to start flowing again. Is there something specific you'd like to see, at least, towards the end of the calendar year, if not before?
So what I want to see, Sid, is take a step back a little bit and decide how important is auto industry for the country. And if we decide as a country that auto industry is our catalyst for growth, then we need to put our might behind it as a country. Now, economically, you know that most developed nations, or many developed nations, have developed on the back of auto industry. Right? The contribution that auto industry has made to, say, Germany, to Japan, to US is much higher than what the Indian auto industry has been able to make yet to India in terms of GDP percentage, in terms of employment generated, in terms of exports, all of these things. And the current penetration of automobiles in India is very low. We know that too. And therefore, the economic potential of auto industry is very high. Okay? And that's known. Now, if we decide as a nation, that means we put a mission behind it, as many countries have done in the past, Korea, Japan, China, and say that we need to use auto industry to bring economic growth. And all the ministries align, OEMs align.
That's the tricky one.
OEMs align. Well,
yeah.
I hope that the new government will make all the ministries align.
Yeah.
OEMs align, component makers align, NGOs align. Very important, because NGOs are an integral part of this. And consumers align. Then we can do it. The problem that comes in is the evil that we talk about that comes with the auto industry. So economically, yes, it's all positive, but evil is the environmental impact and the social impact to some extent. And the trick now is, how do you balance that? How do you counterbalance the evil that comes with the about the economic, about the environmental and social impact? And I think there are ways and means of looking at it. If we can all sit together and talk about it and say, yes, I want to grow the auto industry, but I cannot see how to grow it without the negative impacts, and then what can we do to neutralize it? So the value that might get created by economic growth for the government, for the OEM, for the suppliers, can some of that value be plowed back into counterbalancing the negatives? What can we do to bring in our safety norms and emission norms much faster than what we have been doing now? It's a matter of money, it's not a matter of technology. Technology is available, right? So if we can take some of this money and put it here, what can we do to phase out old vehicles? It's a matter of cost. If we can take some of this money and put it here, then I think we can balance this whole thing. Maybe it's sort of an idealistic view, but
it's also a practical view.
I think we need a dialogue. We need a dialogue which is not led by one ministry. We need a dialogue which is led by, in the manner of speaking, Government of India, along with the OEMs, along with the suppliers, along with the NGOs, to say we need auto industry to grow. How do we counterbalance the negatives? But
a lot of the vested parties, and you mentioned there are several, very often have taken a very short-sighted view, which means basically looking for fiscal incentives. Do you think that is the only way to get them, together?
Well, look, it's yes, there will be some.
Easier way.
There will be some who will take short-sighted view, but I think there are many more who will take far-sighted view. And I'm very proud of the leadership that the auto industry has today, both at the component level and supply and OEM level. And I think if somebody took a lead and say, I want to bring all these forces together and create a very strong auto industry which is the catalyst for growth, it can happen. But it cannot happen if only few of the stakeholders are participating, not all. Everybody has to participate.
And we've seen that in the example that you had with Mahindra Reva, for example, where you launched a certain product, there were certain expectations which didn't get fulfilled, and then obviously we've seen sales not meeting.
And even there, you would find that MHI is very keen to help in that, and they're pushing very hard, but they have not succeeded.
But now, hopefully, like you said, they'll integrate better with what the finance ministry wants to do and give us a
So that's just a small example, but the thing is that we need to be very clear on, for example, the rules cannot change every year. We need to decide what is the 10-year path.
But there has to be a vision for that path.
A vision for the path, a 10-year path that we all work towards and make India a very strong auto industry, not just in terms of a low manufacturing base, low-cost manufacturing base. Low-cost manufacturing base will take us nowhere.
Yeah.
And we are no more a low-cost manufacturing base. Okay? It has to be something where the products coming out of India in terms of technology, in terms of features, in terms of safety, in terms of quality, are as good as any.
Are looked up to, yeah.
And if we don't get to that point, we cannot get to having that aspiration fulfilled for the auto industry.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think it's a valid point as well. And hopefully, like you said, there will be some cognizance of that larger picture as well this time around. That said, in the next few months, what do you think is the biggest thing for you to worry about? Is it the situation that's emerging again in the Middle East? Is it the monsoon? What is it that's going to worry you, or that you're going to keep a close eye on?
For the auto industry, I think the thing to worry about now, other than the excise rate, which I hope
that we should know soon enough. So,
thing to worry about now will be oil prices, frankly, because diesel also has become very expensive now, and if it is decontrolled, which could happen, and we are not against that. We have always said that's the right thing to do. But not to be overtaxed, only decontrolled. So if it is decontrolled and crude prices go up, and rupee also is beginning to again become weaker, and diesel prices go up, then again it's going to have a very devastating effect on the auto industry, specifically for the commercial vehicle. Commercial vehicles are really in bad shape. The trucks have been degrowing for 24 months now, selling half as many trucks as we sold 2 years ago as the industry. The small commercial vehicle, which were darling of the industry, growing very well, have also degrown 25-30%. So this industry, this segment is in real trouble, and diesel prices will have a big effect. So even though it may right now look like not something big to worry about, but that is a big concern. Other big concern could be monsoon, but I don't think monsoon will have a major impact on the automotive industry. It might have some impact, though not very big, on the tractor industry, but I don't think it will have a big impact on the auto industry. So it's just the overall economic situation, and specifically the oil prices is what will concern me right now, assuming that no irrational policy decisions are made.
You've been, for months and months when the situation in the auto industry started to go south, we used to always, talk about how Mahindra is sitting pretty as this one manufacturer that doesn't get affected by everything else that's happening because, you're in the sweet spot, etc. Last few months, of course, things have changed there, and I know we've talked about this, where you've had pressure even on the UV portfolio. What is the situation today? Do you find some of that pressure easing? Do you think that the consumer is thinking differently? Because we still don't have that new product from you as yet.
Yes. No, I think the slowdown that happened for Mahindra, because we don't have compact SUV, has probably stabilized. And so now we have kind of the right balance between the large SUVs and the compact SUVs. And large SUVs will still remain fairly strong, leading player, 50% plus market share, and that will continue. So I think the current situation that we have with market share should continue till the time that we launch our new products. And after we launch our new products, hopefully we will regain some of the lost market share that we have lost to compact SUVs. And therefore, the remaining period till the time we launch a new product will be a period of sustaining our current sort of relative position in the industry. And after that, we'll be looking for growth with respect to the industry.
But are you trying to accelerate some of that to market? Because like you mentioned, things should start turning around. There is pent-up demand, this we know. And of course, all eyes are sort of looking at the festive season. So is there something you can do to pull a sort of a trick out of the hat?
Wish we could, but there is no way. You
got to do it the right way.
You have to let the wine sort of sit in the bottle long enough for it to be ready, and we will have to wait it out.
What about some of the other markets? Because we've seen that of late there has been a greater focus towards what's happening in the domestic scene, not just for you, but for some of the other players. But are some of the other markets starting to come back for you? I mean, Latin America, for instance. Everywhere where we saw sales had started to trickle off, sales have come back. What is your position?
Some of the markets have started turning back. Sri Lanka had slowed down significantly. It's turned back to some extent, not to the best years, but turned back quite a bit. Same thing true for Bangladesh, coming back again. Nepal is doing very strong. So neighboring countries now are good. Where we are having problem right now is some of the Latin American markets are slowing down. Chile, in fact, the economy, because of copper prices tumbling, is in a slowdown phase right now. South Africa is not doing very well either. But it's a cycle, given that we are spread in so many different countries. It's a cycle. I think the international market probably will not overall heat up. It will remain, some countries will be up, some will be down. We are not planning on making any major new entries. We have enough on our hand right now. We want to consolidate our position in these markets and gain somewhat of a higher market share than what we have today. So we would remain in a situation of marginal growth in the international markets for some time. And after that, once we have again a slew of new products which we have stabilized in the Indian market and then ready to launch them in the overseas market, then hopefully again we will see sort of new customer segments coming to us.
But these new products, especially compact products, and especially in Latin America, that kind of makes sense for you to, make sure that you have that strategy going, because that will certainly give it some impetus.
Undoubtedly.
So, but that's not something you're going to be in a rush to get to. It's
well,
not as if you'll do
again,
simultaneous launches.
We'll have to bring the products in, stabilize them in India before we launch them in the US. And typically we, not US, sorry, Mrs. Pope, before we launch them outside India. Typically we let the products sort of mature for 6 months to 1 year before we take them out of India.
Well, you mentioned US, so I have to ask you about that as well. The technical center, the kind of work that's been happening there. Give us a sense of what it's already doing for you and where you plan to take that. I mean, will there be further investments into that technical center in terms of growing it, in terms of making it perhaps, a much larger R&D base for you?
Well, in some sense, this technical center is reverse outsourcing, where used to be that the companies from West came to India for lower cost of engineering. We are going out of India for higher level of technology. So we have started with a modest plan to have about 35 to 50 highly experienced engineers. These are not sort of low-level engineers. These are people who have 15, 20 years of experience in automotive industry, who have come together, and they're very excited to work for us, frankly. Come together, we have set up this nice R&D center in Troy, Michigan, my hometown at once upon a time, and have started developing a new product from there, which will be one of a new products that will get launched in, I think, 2017. So work has started on that.
Is that specific to Mahindra, or is that Mahindra SsangYong?
It's specific to Mahindra right now, right?
But that's open. I mean, in the future, they could be doing work with...
Yeah, of course.
You will have shared platforms anyway.
That is correct. So we have started doing that work right now, and the full development work is happening in Detroit. And from there, once it reaches a certain level of engineering maturity, we will bring the work back to India and do prototyping and everything else here. So we believe that becomes integral part of our network for product development. We have a small company in Torino called MGRD. Now we have the technical center here. And we might do a few more things in future, and that kind of becomes our network of engineering.
But it's not as if you're going to look to expand that rapidly or look to make that a much larger base.
We would think that if all goes well, we should go up to about 100 people there, and then we will see.
Okay, so that is something that you have already planned for.
That's right.
The focus of this center, though, is not necessarily then, only keeping global markets or future exports in mind. It's also keeping the domestic need in mind.
Domestic as in US?
For India. Like now you said this new product
these products we are developing are for domestic, for India. Yes.
So it's not just with a view on future entries into other markets and things like that. All right. On the US as well, you have to quickly give me a quick word on this new electric bike that you've done.
Well, it's very
What's
interesting.
The background?
Very interesting. This kind of started off as a small project that some of our engineers came to us and said, look, we see a good opportunity for doing an electric bike in US for college campuses. Where the distances are not very large, but you still cannot walk, and thought that this will be a very good idea. So we said, okay, go and do some prototyping, and they did some prototyping and came up with a concept that we thought was a very nice concept, which could be commercially leveraged, and that's the reason we decided to make that a commercially available product. We set up our R&D center for that, as well as manufacturing plant in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And we will be starting the production in November. We already have opened a store in Palo Alto, where we are
going to be there.
where we are doing some sort of pre-bookings from, and getting good interest. So it's a cute little bike, which I think can become I think to call it a cult would be an overstatement. Right now we have not sold a single bike, but it could become something that a specific segment would really like to own at an affordable price, very convenient, very functional, So
you've sort of chanced upon this business opportunity for the US.
A lot of good things happen by chance.
Not the product we expected you to launch in the US first, but
good things in life happen by chance.
Yeah, all right. So one last point then before I let you go. You know, the whole focus of late has been on consolidating and, you know, just sort of trying to make things happen in a very difficult environment. From here on, can we expect some of your own impetus at Mahindra to come back in terms of, you know, maybe accelerating certain projects, greenlighting fresh investments? What can we expect from you in that sense?
So let me say that we have never slowed down in terms of planning for the future. What has slowed down, of course, is capacity expansion because the sales have not grown. But we have not slowed down a single product that we had planned 3 years ago or 2 years ago. Everything is on track. In fact, if anything, we are adding new things. We have a lot of stuff planned for electric vehicles in spite of not having pull for the electric vehicles in India. We are doing a Verito, we are doing a Maximo, we are looking at a 4-door, we are looking at Hello. So that's going on. We're looking at hybrids, working hopefully ready to launch less than a year from now. That's going to come out. Hopefully the rules won't change on hybrid. We are looking for many new platforms in all the ranges that we have. We are looking at a couple of white spaces that we think could create something new for us. We are also looking at how the future mobility will be in India. And the metros, the urban metros, the large metros, would probably have to have more public transport. There's no way you can have the same level of individual transport, private transport happening. In that case, when you have public transport, how will the use of cars be? And what do we need to do for that? So thinking about it and looking at product launches as far as 2025. Not that we have a firm plan for 2025, but looking as far as 2025 to see what kind of things, technology, features, utilities we need to put in the vehicle. So we have never slowed down.
Capacity you don't have to worry about in the short
capacity, term. Of course, yes, we need to worry about it. I mean, right now we have ample capacity, not a problem.
Maybe more than you would have liked to have, but hopefully that changes soon.
Hopefully that will change.
All the very best, and
thank you
very much for speaking to us.
Thank you. Great.
Good to see you.
Okay.